It's the winter holidays. Most of us are going back to our hometowns, and I am no exception. While here, the channel actually passed 100 subscribers, and to each and every one of you I want to say thank you. My Christmas gift came early. I also made that play button. To celebrate this achievement, I'm going to take you around through the towns I grew up in eastern Romania. First, it's the town known as Bacau. It's your typical Eastern Europe former communist town, which usually means not that many old buildings left. What we do have instead is one of the most modern cathedrals in Romania. Construction started, I think when I first moved to the city, when I was about 6 years old. That's like, more than 20 years ago now. They must have read the How to Build Cathedrals manual because it took so long to finish it. At a certain point, I just thought they completely abandoned it and just going to be one giant concrete structure with nothing. I mean, Cathedral Park was built and finished, well, a couple of years before the cathedral was. In the park, they also recently finished the Victorious Romania monument. It's dedicated to all the battles and victories Romania achieved during the First World War. Yes, we were part of it since 1916. The two people at the monument represent Queen Maria I and King Ferdinand I. He ascended to the throne of Romania in 1914 after the death of his uncle Carol I. He made an oath to the Romanian parliament where he would reign as a good Romanian. An oath he kept in 1916 declaring war on Germany, essentially betraying his German origins. Kaiser Wilhelm II had Ferdinand's name erased from the Hohenzollern house register. Despite Romania suffering major setbacks during the First World War, it was during his reign it would finally be unified, earning himself the name Ferdinand the Unifier. At the other end of Cathedral Park we find ourselves a small fair, and I swear to God, every single city in Romania now has a Ferris wheel. It was interesting to walk through Cathedral Park again and see how much it has grown in the past years. If you're wondering how do I know how the cathedral was built in time or how the park grew, my high school was right next to it. I remember we used to have a very old PC we would play Mortal Kombat during breaks on it. Good times. The city center of Bacau is mostly covered by flats, but you can find one or two old buildings around here. One of which is the Bacovia Municipal Theater. Who is Bacovia, you ask? I'll get to him in a moment. The theater was built in the 1920s and it has been in this sorry state outside for quite some years now. It used to look like this. Another old building is the Administrative Palace built in the 1880s, used today as headquarters for the prefect and the county council. Direct opposite of it, it's the Tricolored Square, decked out for winter celebrations, and right behind it is also the House of Culture. It used to house concerts and events, but those moved with the opening of the Summer Theater. During the day, this whole square area doesn't look that impressive, but during nighttime, In all my years living in this city, I have never seen it so beautifully lit. But when I was a kid, we went to the city center for one reason. It has to do with this black space here. In that place there used to be a fast food joint which made some of the best burgers and shawarmas you can imagine, and I probably enjoyed it way more than I should have. That place was known as La Irina. It still exists today in a disused bus station a couple of 100 meters away, but losing that central location kinda made it lose its prestige as well. Across the street from it are the oldest buildings in Bacau, known as the Princely Court and the Precista Church. Ștefan cel Mare built the church while his son Alexandru established the Princely Court in the late 1400s. I wish I could have filmed more inside of it, but one of the clergymen was not very happy with me being there. My fault for not seeing this sign, I guess. If there is one famous person of Bacau, that is the poet George Bacovia. That was the pen name of Gheorghe Vasiliu, born in 1881, Bacau. He's widely regarded as one of Romania's most important poets, alongside Lucian Blaga, Tudor Arghezi, or Mihai Eminescu, just to name a few. His work focused on symbolism, with his collection of poems Plumb being the most widely known. He used to live in this house before moving permanently to Bucharest in 1933. His work was also seen as a precursor to Romanian modernism. But this man was of many talents. He was also a great painter and an excellent violinist. To commemorate him, they commissioned this bronze statue. which you can still see today in the city center of Bacau. It's meant to symbolize the solitude Bacovia had. The river Bistrița passes through Bacau, and on it we can find the roughest translation would be the Leisure Island. The city celebrations were usually held here, I remember, where you had like all those fair attractions, going around eating meat and drinking beer and all that stuff. It was also in a sorry state, but quite recently they finished rebuilding it and made it into this rather lovely park to walk through. Now it's winter and it's cold and nobody's here, but I can see this place being very populated during summertime. I remember you used to pay a toll to get on this island, but they've done away with that a long time ago. I also remember once I walked on this river. It was so cold, everything froze over, the ice was thick, even people were skating on it. With my childhood town done and finding way more to talk about it than I ever imagined, we're gonna go now on a 2-hour drive to the city I finished my university and started working in, the capital of Moldova region, known as Iasi. It became a capital in 1564, taking the role from the previous one, Suceava. Even though it lost the status in the 1860s with the unification of Moldova and Wallachia, it still remains one of Romania's most important cities. The city architecture reflects its status as a former capital. But first, why another Ferris wheel? I'd understand if it's like the London Eye where it's enclosed, but these are open pods in the middle of winter. You'll be freezing. Back on track, Iași is full of symbolic buildings, so we're gonna go through quite a lot of them. The first one being the Metropolitan Cathedral, consecrated in 1887. Even though it was technically finished in 1839, the quality of the work was subpar. It was actually a ruin by 1857, so they decided to rebuild it in 1880. The late Italian Renaissance style with Baroque elements dominating the interior and exterior features make the Metropolitan Cathedral as one of the most imposing historic Orthodox churches in Romania. The relics of Saint Parascheva, the patron saint of Moldova, are held here, and every year on October 14th you can see people queuing up for more than a mile long to pay their respects to it. Across the street from the Metropolitan Cathedral we find the Rosnovanu Palace, which serves as Iași City Hall, with the mayor being one of the most controversial people in Romania currently. It's some sort of Christmas tradition joke right now where the mayor just gets arrested for like 60 days for various corruption charges, then he gets released, only to be arrested again next year on other corruption charges. What a way to ensure he doesn't celebrate Christmas. Another major architectural symbol of Iași is the Trei Ierarhi Monastery, completed in 1639. What makes this church particularly interesting is the amount of detailed stone lacing walls it has. I mean, it's just gorgeous to look at it. If there is a building which you could say, this is the symbol of Iași, this is it. The Palace of Culture. Inaugurated in 1925, it was built in this flamboyant neo-Gothic style to replace the princely palace of Moldova. The centerpiece of this palace is the clock tower. The clock is made out of stained glass and it also includes the 12 astrological symbols, while the bells inside it play Hora Unirii each hour, though a pretty abridged version of it. In front of it we also find the statue of Ștefan cel Mare, Moldova's greatest king. Pretty much all the cities in Moldova have a statue dedicated to him. I always liked this place when I was a kid. Not because of the statue or the architecture, but because it had a cannon. I like cannons. Up until a decade ago, behind the Palace of Culture, it was mostly unused terrain, which prompted real estate developers to develop Palace Mall, and with it, the new IT center in Iași. I always liked this place. It definitely had more style than the old previous blocky arena mall type of things, but it also had a public garden for people to enjoy themselves during summertime. The only thing they didn't build was a cinema, so that the other mall, Julius, doesn't go bankrupt. Yeah, that's the one. Why would you do your shopping there when you have the more aesthetically pleasing Palace? Another part of Iași is Copou Hill. This long road has sort of a romanticism tied to it, being associated with quite a few Romanian authors. There are quite a lot of rumors that they got inspired by walking the hill or going through the parks of it. But if there is one author that is associated with Iași and Copou, it's Mihai Eminescu, widely regarded as Romania's most important poet. A memorial is dedicated to him in Copou Park, built right next to a linden tree. That tree is special. Not only is it more than 500 years old, the poet Eminescu usually spent his time under it writing his masterpieces. In Copou, there is also the Alexandru Ioan Cuza University, one of the oldest universities in Romania, with the University Palace being completed in 1897. A part of it, known as the Hall of the Lost Footsteps, actually served as the parliamentary debating chamber between 1917 and 1918, because the capital Bucharest fell. Like I said, Romania had it rough in the First World War. Today it is shared with the Iasi Technical University, the one I followed, and I remember I had to go here to have some of the classes, and it was a pain. The classes were like at 8 AM and I had to take a tram for about 30 minutes to get there, so it meant I had to usually get up at 6:30 to 7, which during winter time, it was not fun. Most of the trams back then were these GT4 types, which came from Stuttgart, Germany. I think I was subliminally programmed to go there by these trams. Why go to the Straßenbahn Museum to ride one of these on an old heritage railway when you can come to Iași and ride it on old railways? Though in recent times they did introduce new models of trams which oddly remind me of the ones in Karlsruhe. By the way they move, the engine sounds, the door closing sounds, even though they are not related in production at all. Even though the Technical University has some parts in Copou, most of it is located on the banks of the Bacau River. I used to live in the neighborhood and had to cross that yellow bridge every day to go to my university. Though ever since they added on the bridge this weird-looking sculpture. The medallion I'm carrying is vibrating, so it must be a place of power. After I focused with it and spent my talent point into Quen, we're going to head now into the depths of Iași. In this grotto is where most of the nightlife events happened, and even though I wasn't much of a partygoer, I can still remember the places. Imagine, if you will, this place filled to the brim with people, going to the bazaar for some cheap shots, to listen to some rock music at Underground, or go to some folk and karaoke nights at Taverna, though since then, sadly, Taverna closed down due to fire hazards. A shame. To end the video and the year with a bang, we're going to head to the military circle back in Copou, where they have this fantastic static display of artillery pieces. You can say that that pun that I just made is so funny. Why wasn't this place along when I was a kid? I'd like my cannons. This place also showcases how they evolved, starting with this one from the 1900s made by Krupp in Germany. With a 14-year gap, Škoda produced this field howitzer, which, let's be honest, it looks much better than the previous Napoleonic era style cannon. Here you can find quite a nice selection of anti-aircraft cannons, from the 57mm to the infamous ZPU, which I am pretty sure was directly inspired by the M45 Krautmower the Russians had the Lend-Lease from Americans during the Second World War. A license-built Type 59-1 from the Chinese, which was a modification of the M46 gun they licensed from Russia. This was the pride of Romanian artillery. It's known as the A412 and it's a behemoth of a gun. 130mm in caliber, it can fire at ranges of up to 30 kilometers away, and it was proof that the Romanian industry was developed enough to produce magnificent artillery pieces. Even after Ceausescu fell and most of our industry fell into disrepair, we still managed to produce one interesting artillery piece, the Bucegi 98mm mountain gun. That weird caliber comes from us trying to respect the Treaty of Paris, which stipulated that we could not have more than 1400 100mm or higher caliber artillery pieces. But the gun was unpopular. With NATO membership also looming ahead, it was withdrawn after 5 years. The best part of this exposition? You don't have to pay a dime to see it. What a fantastic year this was. I never imagined the channel would actually be this successful by the end of the year. We've been through quite a bit of England, seen the Portsmouth Historic Dockyard, Tank Museum, Tank Fest, Nitro Olympics 2022, the magnificent Rhaetian Alps, and paid the most expensive train ticket to Oxford, besides going to the imperial city of Nuremberg. So, with the year ending, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and also a Happy New Year. And I look forward to doing more great wanderings in the next year. Until next time.